First of all, thank you, Ambassador, for giving us an opportunity to interview you. I thought it would be very useful for our southern audiences in the capitals to listen to the three dimensions you talked about, the north and south, and how they view the food security issues. So we will look forward to listening to your comments on that. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. I think there is a first point to be aware about the issue we are talking about, and that's the population dimension. I think we have to be aware how many people are still living in rural areas and how many are earning their livelihoods as farmers and as peasants. The planet's population in rural areas is 1.3 billion people. We have on the planet 1.3 billion peasants, mainly small peasants. And together with their families, we will have a world population of almost 42% of the whole world population. And among this population, we have also to know that 3/4 of the poorest are to be seen in that population. So I think there is also very much a development dimension to be linked to the agricultural dimension. We know, of course, what the Millennium Objectives is to reduce the population of those suffering from malnutrition and hunger. They are now 850 million, and now with the food crisis, this figure will probably increase. So I think we have to be aware of all these figures and this poverty dimension, which has to be integrated in the new strategy for agriculture that we have to shape right now. The second issue I wanted to raise is the huge differences in productivity between two categories of agriculture. On one side, the agriculture of the industrialized countries and the emerging countries, and on the other hand, the productivity of the agriculture in the majority of developing countries. This relation had been more or less 1 to 10 a century ago. Today it has raised to 1 to 1,000, which means that when one peasant, let's say in Zambia or Malawi, is producing 1 ton of cereals, the farmer in the north or in one emerging countries is capable to produce 1,000 tons of cereals. And the explanation is that the agriculture in the north and in emerging countries has been giving a lot of investment support over the last decades, if I may say so, while in the south, governments were not capable to do that. So I think this productivity gap is for me a very important concept once you move towards a trade organization. If you want to bring together these two types of agriculture on the same marketplace, I think that you have to be very careful how you go about it, because otherwise you risk to really to put into jeopardy and to kill the small farmers in the majority of countries. To add to my previous point, in sub-Saharan Africa, for example, you have still 60–80% of the population living in rural areas as farmers and peasants. The same is even true in countries like Bangladesh, India, China. 60% in rural areas, still peasants. While in the northern countries, the farmers' population has gone back. In Western Europe, for example, I think this population has been limited now to some 4 till 5% of the whole population. The third and last point I wanted to make is the price dimension. If you want somebody to produce in farming or in other sectors, you have to offer him a profitable price, a price which at least would cover the cost of its production. And what we have to face today is a huge volatility of prices. It is true, of course, today that we have a huge increase of food prices. But we have not to forget that for decades we had to face a decrease of prices. And this decrease was hurting very badly farmers worldwide, both in the north and in the south. The difference was that in the north, farmers could go and to their governments and to get some compensation, what is called today internal aid. While in the south, the peasants could not do that. Governments were not capable to offer some aid. So this was creating a very huge difference of treatment, And to face this volatility of prices, we have to go for profitable, stable prices. And to do that, I think you need some market regulation. If you open too much your markets, you expose yourselves to the prices on the world markets, and mainly to the prices in the most in the most productive countries, and that poor countries cannot support. So you need market regulation. You need measures to avoid trade distortions. And I think the best way to do that is to offer developing countries what all industrialized countries and all Asian emerging countries have done in the course of their development, namely to protect their agriculture, to offer them this protection from abroad. Take the case of the European Union. I'm European. The founder of the European Union put into place a common agricultural policy, showing by that for them agriculture is important, and showing also that they didn't want to be dependent from cheap food imports from abroad. So they put into place the common agricultural policy, which had a very important trade dimension, which was what we call the community preference, which was a very solid protection against cheap imports from abroad. This protection has never disappeared. It has been modulated. It's still there. So we believe that the rights that we have been using for our farmers, we should not refuse them to developing countries. It would be only fair to give these rights also to the poorest. And I think the crisis that we have to face today make it even more urgent that we look for kind of solution of the one I just have explained to you. Thank you very much for your kindness.
Thank you so much, Ambassador. Thank you for speaking on the Southcentre Digital Television. Thank you once again.
Thank you.